The first thing I felt was a draft I had long forgotten. But as soon as my clarity started to return, I realised my glass eye had been knocked out in the blast. This is why I would later become known as Halfsight. Having a piece of glass and plastic in your eye socket isn't exactly comfortable. You would think I've gotten used to the feeling, but it's unnatural. But my personal spectrum of natural has shifted dramatically these last few days. Without the glass eye, the draft I was feeling at this time in question was again uncomfortable. I guess I could have worn an eye patch, but fitting in was too much of an issue as it was, and I don't like pirates enough to constantly hear derisive references to them. Anyway, as I lay there, after the explosion, bare skin rubbing against the alien surface, parts of my body seared and burnt, the clothing that I did have on ripped, torn, and as shredded as my mind felt. All I could think, after everything that had happened, was, I hope I can find my eye. I guess I should tell you how I got into this predicament. Whether you believe me or not, whether I can use my less than impressive linguistic skills to articulate and convey the enormity of my situation. A lot of factors will contribute to the overall picture. At the least, I hope you have an open mind regarding alien life, or at the very least are willing to. It started when I was a child. I was less than healthy when I was born, and surgeries were commonplace. My older siblings would later in life resent me. It seems the stresses of having an unhealthy child and the baggage that comes with that can change people, as my blood thought I changed my parents. Their happy, light nature extracted like my eye and replaced instead of a sad, low detachment. But unlike a piece of glass and plastic, this unwanted change could not be removed. And for this, the parents that I would grow to love were mere shadows of the parents my brothers and sisters grew to. In their opinion, anyway. Now, whether or not the beings who would come to abduct me over the course of my life were responsible for the loss of my eye was unclear, although, surprise me, it would not. I hate to go on about my ocular prosthetic, but it is important, trust me. I first suspected I was an abductee when I was around 8 years old. I had what I convinced myself were dreams. The door of my bedroom would open slowly but deliberately, my head turning to the side beyond my control, looking out the door. I could see one step. After this step, you would turn right and the staircase was now ahead of you. A landing, I believe some call it. Anyway, it was set up as such, so the first thing you would see was a leg poking up about to turn and walk towards you. I looked on in terror as 3 figures whose outline was ablaze with multicoloured tubing would systematically surround my bed. They would tell me things, nonsensical things like, life is equivalent to a carnival game in another world, and the goal is to live as long as you can. If this was the case, then the alien being who controlled Jean Clement like she was Jill Valentine must be a high score. These beings would leave as they had arrived, almost on rewind, except slow. Sleep paralysis is something I have experienced. Exploding head syndrome is something that I have experienced, and this was neither. It's funny I should mention Jill Valentine. As a child, I awoke one morning to find that my brother had procured a PlayStation with a few games. I played Resident Evil and instantly regretted it. It terrified me. The reason I bring it up is because at the time I had a teacher who held a War of the Worlds month. We read the book, listened to the musical, and watched the film. Hearing about alien beings left me a complete mess. I remember thinking, my God, they visit me. Only more childlike than that. I prayed at night that they would not come. Anyway, the main theme for War of the Worlds terrified me. In a way it still does. And after Resident Evil had made me sick with fear, literally, I was due another shock. I lay in bed, ill, shivering, cold and scared, and my mother walked into the room and presented me and my brother with a gift. It was an alarm clock, which played Beethoven's Fifth, which to me reminded me heavily of the War of the Worlds theme. To make things worse, the clock had a spider on the top of it, and it danced and smiled. So, as you probably guessed, yes, I am an arachnophobic. This was not a good day, but I digress. Alien beings were not something that I would bring up, but like death, I feared them, but also was completely fascinated with them. I needed to vent somehow, so keeping my experiences to myself, I developed an interest in all facets of the paranormal. But seeing a ghost is finite, at least in comparison to alien abduction. Some people see a ghost and then they have a story, and that's it. The ghost does not strap you to a table that makes the hadroncal idol like a colouring book, stick some sort of extractor in your urethral opening, and then have the gall to tell you telepathically that everything is going to be okay. I don't know what's worse, the examination or the patronising. Yes, ghosts do not do this, unless they're a ghost of aliens, maybe. These nighttime experiences would contrast with my regular surgeries, and at times I felt like I would mix them up. It was maddening. One time I was convinced that these beings were in disguise and decided to make things smoother by making me think I was having a regular surgery. My grip on reality was strong. I was just not sure if it was reality that I had a grip on. What was strange was that these beings, although indiscernible from one another, seemed to be the same ones each time, like a team of scientists picking up a rat. For all I knew, they were teenagers, and I was the car to joyride in. I had no proof that these experiments were medical or had any significance. Not until I escaped during a session, that is.